one name that the Arizona Diamondbacks have been connected to through reports and through rumors, and including yesterday a tweet that said that they had a scout at the game scouting this particular pitcher. The Arizona Diamondbacks do have an interest in Detroit Tigers left-handed pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez, somebody who I am a huge fan of and have been hoping that they would target. Hearing that they had scouts out there, especially one of his better starts of the year, was very encouraging.
Against the Royals, so take it with a grain of salt.
That part. I'm not adding variables or caveats here, but I'd also say the Diamondbacks, as was reported, we're not the only team interested in Eduardo Rodriguez. So the interest seems to be high in the pitcher from a lot of teams around Major League Baseball, and there's some very good reasons why.
Yeah, if we look at Erod's numbers for the season, you can see why teams would be interested in this guy. A 2.67 ERA this year, 0.97 WHIP, 83 2/3 innings. He did miss a little bit of time, but when he has been on the field, he's averaging pretty much right at 6 innings per start, 9.5 strikeouts per 9, 1.9 walks per 9, a FIP of 3.15. Maybe overperforming a little bit with that 2.67 ERA, but he has been really good this year for the Detroit Tigers. And I know we said Marcus Stroman is probably the best starting pitcher available yesterday. You could make a case it's actually this guy. I would probably take Stroman's track record over Rodriguez's, but he's had a really excellent season this year.
I think the idea here is that Eduardo Rodriguez is on a much less competitive team that might be willing to negotiate.
He's going to get traded.
He's going to get moved.
Yeah,
that's a fact of the matter. And here,
unless I guess the Tigers are still. The Tigers are oddly enough like not that far out of the playoff race because they play in the AL Central. He should get moved. If the Tigers buy at the trade deadline, it's going to be really bizarre. I guess that's still a possibility, but I don't expect that.
They're currently 6 games out of first place in their division,
and they're not winning the wild card.
They are 9 games below 500. In fact, there's only one team with a winning record in that division right now. It's the Twins at 50-47. So yeah, not a very competitive division when it comes to that. But let's take a look at the pros and cons that Erod has. Of course, he's a lefty, and we talked about how that would be. We have Tommy Henry in there, but man, it would be a welcome sight to have another lefty in the rotation. And he's absolutely a clear number 2 or number 3. He immediately joins the fold with Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen as the best pitchers in this rotation, and immediately improves the Diamondbacks rotation. He also has playoff experience.
Yeah, he does. Not a ton. Just some few different years that the Red Sox have been in the playoffs. He pitched a little bit in those spots. Numbers weren't great, but he's at least been to the postseason, and that stage is not unfamiliar to him. The biggest thing on the con side is he does have an interesting contract situation. Everyone's talking about Eduardo Rodriguez being a rental for the rest of the season, which is most likely the case. However, he technically is under contract through 2026. He actually has 3 more seasons on his deal after this one. He just has an opt-out at the end of 2023 that people are widely expecting him to take. Given the season he's had, it makes sense, right? He can make more money than what's left on his deal based on the season that he's had this year. But there is some risk here. If he were to get hurt, if there were, God forbid, some sort of significant injury down the stretch, he probably would opt in, and whatever team traded for him would be on the hook for, I believe it's about $49 million over the next 3 years. Pretty reasonable for a mid-rotation starter. But
depending on the severity of the injury.
Yeah, if there was a significant injury somehow, then maybe you wouldn't want that. So from the Diamondbacks perspective, there's a little bit of financial risk here. And I think that's probably the biggest obstacle for them, whether they'd be willing to take that on or not.
His peripherals aren't great. And what do you mean when you say that specifically?
Yeah, we mentioned his FIP is a little bit higher than his ERA at 3.15. Looking at some of the other numbers for him, it all points to a guy who's overperforming a little bit. Like I don't think anyone, frankly, really believes that Eduardo Rodriguez is like a mid-2 ERA guy. Looking at some of the others, his xFIP is 3.41. His expected ERA from StatCast is 3.45. They're all kind of like mid-3 ERA type stuff. I don't really see him maintaining this level of performance the rest of the season. And in some ways, it's a little unclear, like how exactly is Eduardo Rodriguez suddenly taking this big step forward? He's had good seasons in the majors before, but He's never had a season with an ERA below 3.81 coming into this year. And it's not, he's still throwing about 92, 93. There aren't any, I'd have to dig deeper, but to my knowledge, there aren't any obvious reasons why Eduardo Rodriguez, suddenly is taking this drastic step forward. So if you trade for him and you're expecting him to be like an ace caliber pitcher, which is what his numbers suggest he is, you might be a little disappointed. I don't think he's quite as good as some of those numbers would say.
That's an interesting perspective, and I just can't help but think if other teams, I'm not suggesting the Diamondbacks would potentially package Geraldo Perdomo in a trade at this point. I feel like he's too valuable to their future for now, right? But yeah, I wonder if he wouldn't be that valuable anyway, because based on what he did last year versus what he did this year, I have a feeling teams might have that kind of approach. Like, hey, I don't know who the real Geraldo Perdomo is yet.
Yeah, so it'd be a little weird for the D-backs to trade him too, because like not just for the future, like they kind of need Perdomo this season.
No, absolutely.
Unless you're comfortable with Nick Ahmed, being your everyday shortstop moving forward. She did come through in a couple big spots yesterday.
He did.
But I kind of doubt that Perdomo would be on the table unless the D-backs were getting another shortstop, maybe in like return, as a rental or
they
something.
Felt somebody was coming up. Maybe I don't feel like any of the guys in the minor league system are anywhere close to that point. And
I don't think you're relying on.
Yeah, right.
Like Blaze Alexander, I don't think you necessarily want to totally rely on him the rest of the way either. So yeah, but yeah, Connor makes a good point. His strikeout rate of 26.8%, his walk rate of 5.5%. Those are both really good. Fantastic. Like he has been better this year than he's been in the past.